Hey.
Hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I'm
Good.
excited for episode 2.
Me too.
Each
We had to take a little break there.
yeah,
Flew
each
in.
time gets a little bit crazier that this is happening.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I've got my bevy of the day. What's yours?
I have a homemade latte.
Okay. That
I'm
looks
very
pretty
proud of it.
fancy. Mine came from a can. I'm drinking my good old cream soda.
I love cream soda.
It's that one that Arizona coffee.
Ooh, yeah, that one's good.
Anywho. So, our first episode, I think, went splendid. I think it went so good. I
I
was
think
so
so too.
excited for how good it just like came together.
Absolutely. I was really proud of it. I think it got really good reviews. I was really impressed with the feedback that we got. You had people reaching out to you, which I thought was so cool, saying that they enjoyed the episode and were going to tell their friends. And it's just such a cool feeling that there's already people
I
kind of
know.
taking
And
the time to do that.
it was a shock because I don't really talk to this person a lot, but I mean, they're great. They're a great person. But I was just like, wow, like it really made me feel good about our little thing because, hearing like all the excitement from people we don't really talk about or talk with that often just felt different.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hear from your friends you talk about every day, like they support you, whatever, but hearing it from someone from the distance, per se, saying, "Hey, love your episode," it felt so good.
Right, right. Someone from maybe in school that we're no longer in super often contact with.
I know,
That's
I
really
know.
cool. It
It
feels good.
was, it was.
Got
It also
some
felt good to get that wall up in our photos because that took quite a long time.
yes, you guys don't know how much effort was put into that DIY shoot. We're very proud of it, and I'm glad that we're getting. I mean, there was like 20 some likes on it, so thanks so much for that, guys. Because that DIY wall took us maybe longer
Oh my
than to
gosh, too long.
film the episode.
We weren't so smart in the beginning. Let's be real. Like we were doing individual pages, and then we figured like, why can't we just build the wall on the ground, and then we'll put it up all at once? And we ended
Right.
up doing that.
Tape
So
it
it cut
together.
time, but we were like already what 45 minutes in.
It was crazy. Trader Joe's sponsored the entire DIY Valentine's shoot, you guys. We're in
And our
line, we're like
bevies.
buying the flowers and the chocolates, the chocolate cake or whatever. And I knew that they had newspapers. If you've ever been to Trader Joe's, you know that they have little ones. And we wanted something that looked authentic, but there's not many places that sell newspapers anymore. But I was like, Trader Joe's gonna come in handy. And we're just standing there, and this cashier is a sweet older gentleman.
She was like
And
talking to me.
I'm
She was like, "You don't think that they're gonna think we're weird if we want so many newspapers?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I've never really been to Trader Joe's."
I'm like, I don't know how much they cost. They're probably maybe like 25 cents. But I try to like make a joke trying to like see if he would give it to me for free. And I'm like, ha. So yeah, we're doing like a DIY photo shoot. Hee hee ha ha. And I was like, can we have some of these newspapers? I don't know how much they cost. And he just looks at me. He's like, you can take them. Please take all the ones that you need. So I tell Sarah, I'm like, grab a rack.
I did, and weirdly, it was like just the perfect amount.
It
Like we
was.
used every single piece.
Age.
It was fun though.
It
I had a
was. It
lot of
was a
fun.
blast.
We're glad that a lot of people watched the episode, liked our pictures, even though it was such a long night. I think my flight was at 3 a.m. to go home, so I had to leave her apartment by like 2. Tiana had to work. It was a long night, long day,
It
but completely
was.
worth it.
Absolutely worth it.
Yes. But
But
anyhow,
we're so excited.
yeah.
Today, we are going to shift a little bit from just the romantic relationship side of things. We kind of wanted to make sure that we are talking more about different areas of the in between besides the romantic area, because we know that there's some viewers out there that aren't going to relate to that, and that's totally fine. You can be in the in between in so many other aspects of your life. And so today we wanted to again shift a little bit and do more of a, I'd say, like a mental health internal topic
Yeah,
of the dangers of hyperindependence. I think that hyperindependence can be something common that people share when they're in the in between. So we just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So let's just get into the topic.
sounds good. Let's do it.
In general, I think that the in between space can be so isolating. Obviously, we're talking about hyper independence, and like I said, I think it's a common experience for people in the in between. But I think that it can be both positively isolating and it can be negative sometimes. I think that there's sometimes a need to truly be walking in this space by yourself so that you can
100%.
allow the transition to happen, whatever's happening for you in that in between space, whatever journey you're on at the time, whatever changes need to be made, maybe reformation. I think that the isolation allows for that to happen because you don't have these distractions around you, kind
Right.
of taking away from that time that you need to go through whatever transition that you need to go through.
Right. I definitely agree. I think that it gives you time to reflect about like bettering yourself, but also like it can bring negative thoughts along because obviously self-isolation isn't always what you need, but sometimes it's what happens. And I think it's really hard to figure out how to be in that space, especially to if you're already in like a negative mindset about it, but you're still thinking like, "Oh, I need to like turn this negative into like a positive," especially when you're right there in it. But I definitely think that like it's okay to sit in the negative feelings too, because then once you've like talked about it with yourself, you've journaled, however you release those emotions, I definitely think that the next day is different and maybe better for you in the long run. I
Yeah.
mean, it is for me personally, but I definitely think it can be that way for a lot of people. But I again, it's hard to navigate that in between of like letting your feelings out because you're like you've got so much negative emotion going on, but also making sure that you end on like a positive note, if that makes sense, like a positive takeaway with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the negative, I mean, I hear the word isolated, and I think it has just a natural negative connotation to it. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone would hear the word isolated and be like, yippee for me.
Yeah.
And so it naturally brings those negative emotions. And isolation can mean loneliness for sure. And it is hard. It's a complicated dance between, I know I need to be isolated right now, maybe. I know that I'm going through something that requires me to kind of walk alone or walk off,
Yeah.
maybe separate from this person or that person, but you're still dealing with, I'm a human and I would like to be in company with other people, but in this journey, you find yourself to be alone a lot of the time.
Yeah, especially with like hyper independency, like you're definitely like this is how it's going to be. I'm okay with being alone, but in the back of your head you're saying to yourself, I wish someone would just get me. I think that's
Yes.
how I often see it. I'm alone and it sucks, and people just don't always understand. We don't communicate that to others because in the end, for me, it's a struggle because I think I'm forced to accept being alone,
Mm,
where that
right.
like hyper independency comes in, and you're like, well, I'm alone. So I'm going to continue being alone. And then it just gradually increases to of being alone. And you're like, well, I don't know where else to go from there, like,
You're right. It's sort of this twisted experience that the in between gives you where you know that you need to do this walk alone, but you're being forced. It's not a choice, which is very weird because sometimes the in between can make you think that you're making the choice to do this walk alone, but you're not. You're sort of being forced into it and being forced to take this journey that these other people just can't go on with you. And so it's dealing with the thoughts of, I know I need to be alone. I don't want to be alone, but I am alone. So how do I deal with that? That was a lot
100%.
of words.
No, like I completely understand T. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I feel like because people in the in between, probably more often than not, are more connected or more able to empathize, I think it hurts even more when we're overlooked in the struggle, when people can't just outright see that we're struggling and we're going towards maybe self chosen isolation
Hmm.
because we feel so forced to be isolated. So we just headstrong, okay, fine, I'm just going to close myself off from everybody. But it's not that we want to be pick me's or anything, but we want people to see us. And so, especially in that struggle, when we really need people and the in
No one
between
shows up.
journey doesn't want
Yeah.
us to have people, the in between journey needs us to be alone. We still want those people to see us in our isolation and say, I'm still here for you.
100%. I think that's like what I'm struggling at this point in life. I think that I am at this point where I'm on the go all the time, with my job. And I understand we all have things going on in our lives, but when I start seeing people doing things and going out and about and you didn't even get asked or, thought about, I get into my head and I start thinking, well, shoot, they really don't care. They don't want to know like what's going on with me or even care at that point. They don't ask. So then you start going through the whole things in your head, the whole, what do they call it? A Rolodex of thoughts that just like flip through. And then I start to isolate in a negative sense.
Yes.
I start thinking to myself, no one wants me around. I know we talked about this not too long ago, but no one wants me around. No one really cares what's going on in my life. When I'm quiet, it's not like no one questions it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it hurts me more than I'm sure it hurts them because they've got their own stuff going on, but also when my friends have things going on, I feel like I push my stuff to the side, and maybe that's like a superpower not everyone has, and I know it's weird to say. Um, but I know I also don't communicate, and I've tried to be better with that. But I think again, like that's where I self-isolate in my negative sense. But then through like the days of being alone, I'm like, no, maybe I need to be in this space. Like maybe there's a reason why I'm alone And there's a reason why those friends aren't showing up. I think that like it gives me a sense of realization for myself and a part of my life that I'm understanding that, people come and go. And I'm not saying those people are going to go. I'm just saying in the
Right.
sense of a general um group of friends that it's a hard space. It's hard to navigate not only friends, but I think right now that is my thing. But like parents and family,
Yeah.
they have everybody has something going on, and it's so hard to ask for help and communicate that and be like, I feel as though I'm a nuisance in your life, essentially.
That is hard. That's tough.
I don't know.
Um,
And it's hard to come back from that kind of isolation.
it's hard to pull yourself out of that because there's almost you almost reach a point where you're like, why even come out of it if no one's going to be there to grab my hand and say, "Hey, I've been waiting for you." It almost feels like I might as well just stay here in the isolation, in being hidden away,
Yeah.
because sometimes it seems like no one out there is going to be on the other side of it when I come out of it to
Mhm.
cheer you on and say, I'm proud of you. You got through that. You're not alone though. And next time that you go through something, I'd love to be here for you. And
100%.
I want to speak on your comment about not asking for help. It is so hard to ask for help, I think, for a lot of people. But I think people in the in between, there's almost this need to prove that you can do it alone because, again, of that, I'm being forced by my walk, by my journey. And so I almost need to prove that I can do it alone, especially if no one out there is going to recognize that I'm feeling isolated, that I need help, and that I just don't know how to communicate that. It just sort of pushes you deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever hole of this isolation that you might find yourself in. And it's like you said, it's very, very hard to find a way out, especially if you don't think that it may not even be worth it.
Yeah. I think also with being so hyper independent, you, like we said, accept at some point that no one is going to be there at the end. So with that, I feel as though it's like the universe or whoever is saying, take a step back and reevaluate. Reevaluate like who you really let in to your space, whether it be your mental and like talk about things that you think they would help you work through. Um I think when you're in that space of like hyper independency, I feel like when someone comes in, it's hard to open that door to let them in and to, talk about those things because when you're 1 foot in and those people aren't there for you, you rely too much on them. And it's not their fault because that's just who they are and you can't change anybody. And I think that's something that I've struggled with a lot is knowing that you can't expect a lot out of somebody. Like the first time they don't show up, that's your like the inclination that they're not going to be there the next time. Even if you communicate it, I don't know. That's just a big thing that I've had to work through is letting myself down because of my preconceived um ideas of somebody who I let into my space. And so it's just hard building like relationships out of that as well. Just knowing that that person may not be there at the end of the tunnel. And it's hard being in this space again with hyper independency and being the in between, that letting people into your space at all. Like, knowing who's going to last, and I know not everybody is supposed to last. Everyone comes into your life for a reason. I truly believe in that.
Mhm.
And some don't say stay and some do. Um and it's so hard because those who have been with you through many walks of life change as well. And I changed too. And knowing that they know so much about we know so much about each other, and knowing that they might be gone one day because you've just grown apart is so hard to let go, because they have so many eggs in their basket of your life and your thoughts and your feelings, and to let that go, they're carrying that basket with them, because you can't ask for those eggs back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what's so hard in this space for myself. For anybody who relates, it's just, I think it's hard forming any kind of relationship for me when I'm in this space. I think I'm always in this space, but it's just hard. I think forming any kind of relationship is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think it really weighs on us mentally. Obviously, not just dealing with the isolation, dealing with the journey and the walk that can be so lonely, but it weighs on you to think about, do I want to let this person in? Is it worth it? Is it going to be helpful to my journey? Is it what I need right now? And so that can be such a burden on your mental health. And I think a lot of the times we just choose to just let it go. We choose to not say anything and not speak up and just continue to walk alone. Um, because like you said, we don't want that chance that you take on that person, that you invite maybe into your journey to turn out to be either not worth it, or maybe they come in and they not make it worse, but they just make it harder, not because of something they do, but because you're just not meant to have somebody in that part of your journey. And I think what adds to the mental burden is no one's asking for help, and we're all just maybe dealing with everything always and forever alone. And I don't want to speak for everybody out there, but I just feel it in my gut that it's a common experience, that we're all just like, all right, I'm just going to do it alone. And because there's no talk, because there's no open conversation about the isolating experience of the in between, it just further perpetuates that we can't ask for help. And it's just kind of this nasty cycle.
It is. It is. And it's unfortunate. I think
Yeah.
it just boils down to like communication and probably just all of it. I don't know. It's hard to tell,
Yeah.
and it's hard to work yourself out of it. I feel like
Yeah.
some people might think, well, you could just change your mindset. Some people have stronger minds than others. Sometimes I'm like, man, I'm a wuss. And sometimes I'm like, wow, like you did that alone. Like, good for you. Like, just think of that for next time,
Yeah.
save it. Because oftentimes when I'm in that space of just thinking that I'm alone and I have to do things alone, and I'm okay with doing things alone because I've done it for so long, I like a positive takeaway from that. I really think, wow, like I made it through. I made it through. No one is here but me. And I'm standing
Yeah.
on my 2 feet. And I did that alone. And I didn't have to rely on anybody but myself. And to me, that just makes me feel like I just got so strong from that whole situation. And I just think about it for the next
Yeah.
time and think of it for next time. Because in the end, I've always said it, and it may be a bad thing to say, but I'm used to being alone and I'm learning that it's okay. But I do think on a negative point of that is, again, forming any kind of relationship, because I don't want to have to want somebody. I don't want that person to feel like they have to have me in their life. I don't want it to be convenience.
Mm.
I want them to know that they want me in their life because of who I am, with my good and my bad all together, even though I know I don't need them. I think everybody needs a little somebody. I just like
Absolutely.
contradicted myself there, but you
I
want
think,
somebody, but you don't necessarily need them because you know you made it through a rough time of your life without anybody there. And knowing that that same person might not be there for you next time. I don't know how to explain that again. It's just what's in my head, whether you relate or not.
hey, anything goes with, our personal experiences.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on sort of that feeling of pride that, for better or for worse, you do feel it when you get through something really hard by yourself. And I think we take so much pride after getting through a huge trial
Yeah.
because, I mean, it really is tough out here, man. It's brutal. And so, again, whether it's a good thing or not, it's nice to feel a sense of pride in yourself, to know that you got through something and maybe you really did do it alone. Maybe there was people that wanted to help you and you just maybe didn't take them up on their offer. Maybe there wasn't anybody there. And I think when nobody is there, especially if we do find some way to communicate and people just don't step up, heck yeah, I'm proud of myself because that was not easy. That crap was chaotic and I almost emotionally died. I'm taking a victory lap for just me. I'm
Yes.
clapping my own hands. I'm gonna be omnipresent for a second, and I'm gonna stand at the finish line while myself is still running, and I'll clap my hands for myself, and I say, "Good job." I'll pat myself on the back,
Yep.
and it almost enrages you when people then come into your life and they're like, "You did great. I know that you were going through a hard time." It's like, back off, back up.
No,
You
for
don't know what
real.
I've been through.
For real, or even when you're telling them about how you got to where you are and how you were struggling, and it's so hard for me to not be like, well, I was struggling and you didn't help me and I did it on my own. So don't sit here and act like you had a part in being there for me because where were ya? Where
Yeah,
were ya? But again, I just keep thinking about back and forth of they don't know. It's not their responsibility to build you up.
right.
Although it I think that if it's a true friendship they would do it anyway. But it's really like everyone is going through their own thing. And so it's hard to do your own thing but also be there for somebody else. But I feel a challenge in that in my own way that I'm dealing through this and I'm going through it alone and it's rough. But my friend over here is struggling. My mom over here is struggling. Like whoever.
Yeah,
I need to be there for them. I need to push my stuff aside and be there for them. And I'm sure there are probably so many things that could be said in therapy about these things and how it's probably not healthy. But, beside the point, it's just you put what you need at the bottom and you put other people above yourself. And so I think when people like us are in that space, we're like, well, when is it going to be returned? Like, I was there for that person. Isn't karma good? Like, I don't know. I feel like I believe that I deserve to have a little help along the way, but it's not always there.
that's valid. Yeah,
So it's a rough battle back and forth of
it
yourself
is.
and others' feelings and then expecting it, but you can't expect it because not everyone's like you.
Right, right. And you have to just give them grace because they're not like you. That's something I struggle with so much, is expecting people to think the way that I do and handle situations the same way I would. And I have to tell
Yes.
myself constantly, Tianna, they're not you. They don't think the same way. They have a different perception of the same situation. You can't you can't have those expectations for people. And I do. I have them way up here. And when people miss the bar because I've set it so dang high, I disappoint my own self. And, in the past, I've gotten upset and angry with people. And I've worked through some stuff. And I've continuously been learning that it's because I'm setting the bar way too high for people. People are going to disappoint you so much. And
So much.
there's a level of grace you have to have, especially with your loved ones,
And
for
yourself.
just not meeting the bar. And yourself
Yeah.
too. Yourself too. And
Yeah.
amen to that. Um, if you don't mind, like, I want to tie this personally to just sort of how I work with hyper independence. Um, my personality, I feel like, plays such a huge role in the way that I operate when I'm feeling a little bit more isolated and when I'm leaning towards my hyper independent tendencies. Like I said, I can't expect people to think the way that I do. And I am a very much do it myself gal. I I'm a perfectionist. I always have been. I always will be. And I'm a get it right person. I think I talked a little bit in episode 1 about thinking about life sort of like a math problem, that I have to solve everything. And I learned a lot through therapy that it's not our recording just are really loving the thumbs up today.
They are. We were just
Ignore
talking
those.
earlier and it's just going off left and right.
But I've learned a lot that it's not always black and white. There are gray areas, and I can't necessarily expect people to also want to get it right and to solve things and to have that sort of mentality. Um, and so with the isolation, sometimes I feel like it's a challenge that God is giving me to do something to change my circumstances. When really he's just like, no, you need to be isolated. There's nothing you need to do. There's nothing you're doing wrong, that this is a punishment. It's just what needs to happen right now. But I take it as a challenge because I'm like, oh, you're giving me a problem to solve. The problem is isolation. Now I need to figure a way out of it. It's a puzzle. It's a game. Okay, let's
Uh-huh.
do it. When he's like, no, not a game. I'm not playing with you.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
And so then I start calculating and I'm like, okay, what have I done wrong to get me to this place, and what do I need to do to get out of the isolation? I need to get out of it as fast as I possibly can. And it just obviously the efforts don't matter because there's nothing I did and there's no reason besides it's just what I need in my life at that point.
You're
So
like in a boat trying to fight the wind, trying to get to shore, but in reality, life's like, no, you just need to sit in the boat and enjoy the view for now. Like, we'll get you there when it's time, but just take this time to chill.
that's funny you bring out the boat metaphor because I'm sitting here thinking, as soon as you said that, I'm taking my oar and I'm rowing and I'm like yelling at a non-existent like crew team.
Literally.
I'm like, guys, get the sails up. We gotta prepare. The storm's coming. And I don't know, because of my beliefs, it's like God's in the boat. And he's like, actually, if you just
Like,
stop
he's
for a
just
second
sitting there and he's like,
and you look around, and I like, once I pause and I stop trying to solve everything, I look around and it's a beautiful day. The boat's not rocking. We're calm and
there's
we're just
kids
sitting
jumping
there.
in the water, and you're
Right.
just,
It's a
yeah, you just need to
beautiful
take a deep
moment.
breath. Yes. Yes.
And he's like, I don't know what that all was for, but like, there's no storm to escape from.
There's
We're
no
okay.
rush, right? I think it's such a big thing to sometimes just taking that time to relax and sit in that like stillness. even though your brain's going like, no, I need to get to shore. And then that storm just dissipates, and he's like, I told you, you just need to relax. I got it.
Right. And I exert so much energy
Yeah.
in solving it and trying to figure out what's going on, trying to
Work yourself
figure him
up. Yeah.
out, trying to figure out the plan. And I'm literally wearing my own self out mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. And sometimes that can look like me being hard on myself for no reason and convincing myself that my journey isn't hard enough. So I almost need to make it harder to make it more important. Like, literally, sometimes I convince myself that if I'm not almost drowning at every single second, every step of the way, that it's not a big enough journey. It's not an interesting enough journey for people to want to be a part of it. That's sometimes why I think that people don't come to me and want to support me without me asking for help. That's why sometimes I think people can't see me struggling, is because I convince myself, well, my isolation and my journey isn't interesting enough for people to want to be a part of it. And so I go hyper independent. Like, all of this leads to the tendencies of hyper independency because I just convince myself that it's just not significant enough.
Oh, girl. I, yes. All of that. I also feel sometimes when you're trying to communicate, like, I need to make an effort to communicate if I want my people to understand me. So when you communicate and they kind of don't understand. So I start talking myself away from it. They're not
Mm,
going to understand. So let me just talk my way out and just actually backpedal because they're not going to understand. And they also don't have that mental space to let your chaos come in as well. I always feel that other people have their things going on. So I can't say, help. I need help.
right.
Just blatantly, I need help. Um, Recently, just really quick, I was going through something and I felt like I needed to tell someone about it. And I've done it a couple times, but then I feel as though they just don't have that mental capacity to take your stuff on. Even if they were so more than willing to hear your story, I feel like they are like always saying, oh my gosh, she's got something else going on. This girl's a
Mm,
mess. And then I start to pull back because I'm like, they don't want chaos around. They don't want you in their life because you're always in your head, which I am. And they don't talk you off the ledge like you think they would with kindness and, sympathy and grace. They are like, okay, well, you were like this last week. Like, you should be good. Like, I think you're just thinking too much. And then that is not what I need. I think I needed
yeah,
so I think it just also goes back to saving myself from being let down from not getting the answer you want.
absolutely. I want to talk about the struggle, but the real sense of almost regret and resentment that you have when you do let just one person help, when you do speak up. And it can just take one time, and it's so hard and it's so sad because that's all it takes is just the one time. And when you do speak up and ask for help, and it takes you such a long time to do so, but maybe that person just, they're not equipped with the interpersonal skills that maybe you really need, and that's nobody's fault. um and they just, maybe they don't help, or maybe they approach you in a way that just isn't well received. That's happened to me before. um I was kind of talking with my mom uh a few weeks ago and just kind of opening up about when I was younger, needing to have a different approach to difficult conversations or a different approach to even happy conversations. Like if I did something and they were proud of me, or I did something and they were disappointed in me, needing a different way of confronting those conversations than my sister did. And being honest with my mom and telling her that I was really let down a lot of the time when I was little because I was approached with more of this tough love, like, you got to get your head on right and you got to find your way out of this. And that worked a lot for my sister, I think, when we were younger and still to this day. And that's just who she is. You can kind of tell her to roll up her sleeves and get back on track, get up on her feet and keep going. And that works. And that's really motivating for some people. But some people need a gentler approach. They need to be approached with maybe a little bit more love and kindness and softness to say, I know you tried your best and you didn't make it, and that's okay. And I'm here for you. And sometimes it's not even saying anything. It's just your presence being there is so much more than enough. And I think that's what I prefer as well. Is just sometimes I just need you to be there, and not
Yeah.
say a word, and you being in proximity just lets me know enough that you're right there.
Yeah. I think with the parental thing, I definitely feel like that's a generational
Mm,
approach to things.
that's a good point.
I definitely we've had this conversation before. I know I've also had it with my parents as well, is communicating the type of communication that we work well in. Um I think that's where when I'm not understood by anybody, parents, friends, family, whatever, I end up just saying never mind. Never mind. I walk away cuz in the end, I don't need to waste my energy into trying to explain something about like what's going on with me or just life. So when they don't understand, I'm like, it's okay. I don't need to explain it. Like, nothing wrong with you, like, at all. We all have our different communication styles and we all understand differently. So I'm just like, let me just save my peace in an argument and just step away. But I also realized I'm often approaching a conversation about my life or something I'm struggling in as a joke. So then I think that's what um puts people like Sarah's not really serious. You know, like, oh, she's coming with a problem, but it's always as a joke. Like, I'm not serious enough. And that's a me thing for sure. But I
That's
think
interesting.
for them to get to like understand, I kind of like say it jokingly or not so serious because I'm trying to, but I also kind of want them to have that sense of awareness and being like, no, this is a serious thing. Like,
Like
this is
detecting it.
serious. Yes. And just like knowing that she might need a little extra something. She might need a little extra empathy or just a hug. I don't like physical affection at all, but oftentimes I find myself just needing a hug. Like, I'm struggling, I'm not okay. Just give me a hug. Do I communicate that? No. But that's where I just like back up into my corner again and I'm like, you know what? I have one foot in the I can do it myself hole. I I strive in this area because I know I have to and I know I get over that hump because I've got something behind me that keeps pushing me because that's the road I'm headed towards. And I think it's a lot of an us thing for sure, like communicating and just putting a lot of faith into people who may not be equipped with those responses that we look forward to, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I'm glad you sort of talked a little bit more about that metaphor of the something driving you. Uh, Being in this space, I think people often use hyper independency as a tool and definitely a coping mechanism. I mean, obviously, we're talking about it. It's how we deal with being in the isolating places of this
Mm-hmm.
journey. Um, so obviously it's a tool, but there's almost a sense of resiliency that you form while being in this space because it is just nasty sometimes and
Yeah.
it's hard and it brings you almost to rock bottom and you have no choice but to
To
pull
push
your
forward.
own self out. And like you
Yep.
said, there's that thing pushing you. And it's just each time I think that we reach that level of hyper independency where we close ourselves off for whatever amount of time it is or ends up being, that's just, it builds the resiliency more and more and more. Um, I'm not going to say that that's a positive thing or a negative thing. It can be either. It's, I think, how you use the resiliency, it's how you use the hyper independency. Obviously, we've talked already so much about both the positive and negative side of things, but I just wanted to note that because when you said that, I realized that that resiliency is formed through the hard, nitty gritty, tough journey.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking on resiliency, I've definitely mentally like realized having to rely on yourself in situations like talking to myself through anxiety attacks, like panic attacks, fear and sadness, just like
Yes.
lifely events. Um, I've I've definitely figured out that someone is not always going to be there for you, and that I feel a sense of victory in those moments where I don't want to have to rely on somebody and in like the weakest moments that I have, and knowing that I walked myself through like some of the hardest times I've had makes me feel so good about myself. And just
Yeah.
in that positive, there's kind of a negative with it because again, it's such a tough thing for me forming relationships because I have been so resilient in those moments that I'm like, well, why are you trying to enter my life? Like I don't really need you. It's like
Mm.
the companionship that would be great, but emotionally, I know I can handle my own.
Yeah.
So it's hard releasing a little bit of that and being open to putting that on someone else because they're willing to take some of that burden off your shoulders and be like, you're allowed to have this panic attack, but just know I'm going to be there for you. And I know we talked about that earlier a little bit about, you know, someone being out there on the other side. And I know this is more on a romantic side of things, but I definitely feel that I have this like steel wall and a concrete wall and like this wall right in front of it. And these people are gonna have to break down all these walls because I've already built them so strong. Because I'm like, panic attacks, I got me. I got myself.
Mm.
Anxiety attacks, I got myself. If I'm super sad and depressed, I've got it. I've done it. I've done it by myself. I haven't needed anyone. So why do I need you now? Tell me, what do you bring to the table? Do you know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
So to like
Yes.
give up a little bit of your independency and just be like, it's okay to like let someone in and relinquish that to someone else because they are willing to take it. They are so strong
Yes.
in themselves, even though you think you're so strong in yourself. Like you guys can help each other out, you know? That is such a hard thing for me to do is to form relationships, even with friends, knowing that they're strong because they have their own issues going on and they help themselves out. But now they're willing to like help you out and you're willing to help them out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes to all of that. Um Wow. the way that the journey truly makes it tough more and more as you go through it, as you, like you say, talk yourself through things, as you experience victories by yourself, the more that you're in this journey, the longer that you're in this journey, even thinking about and imagining the day that someone is there, and I'm gonna touch specifically on the romantic side of things, it's crazy to think about that one day there is going to be sort of this built-in support system that, I mean, that's part of what they're there for.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say you're obligated, but as you get married and you become this unit, there is sort of this expectation that you'll allow them into your emotional being and allow them to see those things. I mean, they're supposed to,
Yeah.
but being one of those people in that space now in the isolation, relying on hyper independency, it's so hard to even think to that realm, to think that one day I get to have someone that is partly there in my life to help me deal with such things that I'm going through right now. It's like,
Exactly.
am I ready for that? Am I gonna be able to let that person in? I really hope so. And I mean that's part of talking about it now. That's part of why we have this podcast to recognize where we're at in this journey and to continuously figure out where we can improve the communication skills and where we still need to improve, where we need to go even further beyond in this journey. And I think that that's such an interesting thing to think about and something I realized I really need to think about beginning now how I'm going to allow someone in because someday I'm going to have to and I should. I absolutely should. And not just the romantic things, but friends and family.
Yeah.
That's something I'm always working on. It's something I've struggled with so much my entire life. I just am working on just letting people be there for me that I know want to be and just learning to communicate and say, "Hey, I need help." And learning to give them the grace that they deserve to say they're not maybe going to respond the exact way that I want them to or that I think they're going to, and that's okay. They're going to respond in the way that the best way they know how, and I just need to take them for the love and the support that they're trying to give. That's something I'm really dealing with. And also, I just wanted to speak more on the talking yourself through the emotional breakdowns, the panic attacks, and anxiety attacks. Wow, because that comment really hit me. Um, that I just want to take a moment to, I don't know, be sort of that person for everybody out there listening, maybe even for you, for myself. Uh, if no one's told you, if you're someone like me that deals, or you that deals with that hard stuff in the dark, in isolation, if you've found yourself at the wee hours of the morning, kind of trying to quiet your sobs into a pillow, I just want to take a moment and say that you should feel proud of yourself for getting through that. That is such a lonely place to be when you're rock bottom and you really are just alone and in your room at night and it's dark and you're feeling the most difficult emotions and you're just trying to get through it. It's also something to say when you are maybe out with friends or out with family or just in a group setting, a social setting, and you maybe start to feel those isolating and lonely feelings, and you're maybe dealing with an onset panic attack. or mental breakdown. And anyone who's just had to talk to themselves in their head and get themselves through it by saying, okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling a lot of emotions. I'm feeling like I'm going to freak out, but I can't right now. I have to keep it together until I'm alone. And then once you maybe get in your car or get in the house and it just all comes crashing down, um, my heart goes out to anybody who's been through that. And I'm sure that there's literally every single person that may be listening or not listening has had that experience at least once. And my heart really goes out to those people that have consistently been in that space where they've had to just do things alone. It is hard.
It is hard. That was like good to say though, T, because I think that definitely um it's hard coming out of that. And still, kind of working yourself from the downside, like just recovering. Um,
Yeah.
because then you just start, you still like kind of are working through all of the emotions that you just experienced. But I think oftentimes we forget, like, okay, this happened. Take a deep breath. I made it through. I did it. And I did it alone, you
Yeah.
know? And I take that as a positive. I know that it's hard to think that way. I mean, it took me a while to think that way, but knowing how to take those feelings and put them to something positive, like knowing that, wow, I think I just hit the bottom of the earth. I think I just like really met my end. But knowing that I prevailed and I'm still here. Tomorrow's gonna come and I'm gonna think about this, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Still kicking.
Yeah. And just knowing that you prevailed through something, like I feel like that is just shows your strength. It shows that you did it. I don't know. I just really feel like you really have to believe that you think that is the hardest thing that you've gone through, but you did it. So the
Yeah.
next time something happens and it may feel like your world is falling apart, think to that time where you're like, wow, that was the lowest of lows I've ever been. But
Yeah.
I'm here and I made it. And I know tomorrow is going to be like a bad day or whatever. Excuse me. I did it and I can do it again.
Yes. I do want to challenge myself or anybody who feels the same way that we know that we can do it because we've done it before, but I really want to challenge myself to think that I don't have to, though. I may not have to. Maybe. Maybe I will, but I may not have to. If that is still where you're at in your journey, if you struggle with hyper independency, if you are just at a point where right now, maybe I do have people, but I just need to do this alone, you might need to. Maybe it's something that you want to prove to yourself. Maybe that's a goal. Maybe you've struggled with dependency your whole life and you just think hyper independency may be what I need to on my journey. That's okay. That's totally okay. Whatever you need to do, and you'll know it, um, do it and be confident in it and know that it's okay if you do it alone to take a victory lap. And if no one's there at the finish line, that's okay too. And it's okay to want people there. I want people there. And it's okay if those people don't show up sometimes. But when they do show up, let them show up for you. Let them be there to be supportive of you in your journey. I think that that's maybe the best thing that you can do, and maybe some positive takeaways. Um, I think for me, that's a positive takeaway, but also remembering uh, to just have practical focus on my own goals, not being caught up and having my peace stolen by comparison and thinking that I should be in a different place in my journey while watching people I love enter into the next phase or the next part of their journey, knowing that I'm right where I need to be. And if I have practical focus and say, uh, for example, in my professional life, yes, I want to do performance interpreting. Yes, I want to possibly get into the mental health field of interpreting. But that's right now not something that I need to be saying, I need to be doing that right now. And instead, I'm saying, I need to be working towards getting my license and I need to be studying. That's what I need to be doing. And if I do practical focus on my goal, eventually I'm going to get there. And so, whatever that journey looks like for you, whatever you feel is right, whether it's letting people in or it's continuing to kind of rely on yourself or rely on whatever it is that you do, do it. And I just think that people need to take time to be proud of themselves. Um, but, really consider letting people in that want to be there, that may not know how to communicate that to you, that they want to be there. Consider it. Think about it. Maybe let them in. Could be good. That's something I'm taking from this for sure.
That's great. I do like that. I think that for me, it's a little hard sometimes when they didn't show up before, but maybe they've
Yeah.
been working through their own issues to maybe be there for you. And not saying one issue is greater than another or, vice versa, but I definitely think that it's hard to work through that thought, that self thought of they weren't there before, so why are they here now?
And
But
yeah,
I do get like, try to let them in. Try to let them, be there for you regardless. They weren't there for you then, but they're here for you now. And I think would be that's all that
right.
matters in the end, I guess.
Right. And for you, I would allow yourself to just sit on that.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's okay to consider, do I want to let this person back in? It's okay to, like I just said, maybe being independent is still the path you need to be on. That is totally okay. It's very important to think about the people you are letting back in. Not
Yes.
everybody is going to, again, like you said before early on in the episode, not everyone is going to stay on this journey with you, amongst you, for the long haul. It
Yeah.
is important to be selective. And so if you're still considering and you're still taking time to think about that very deeply and deliberately, absolutely do that. Yeah, that's important.
It is important. So guys, from everything that you have heard today, we've spoke about within our hyper independent journeys. We kind of were just curious for you, um, what what is a positive and negative thing that you can take away from hyper independency if you are going through that journey as well? You could leave your comment in our community page on our website at betweenthepod.com. Um, we just love to hear your journeys through hyperindependency and how you navigate it. I think it would be
Yeah,
great to hear your answers for the sole fact of maybe it's something someone else can relate to, maybe it's something T or I can relate to, and just having a conversation or a discussion about that, I think would be a good little opener on our
yeah,
community.
Yeah, we want to get the conversation started. I think that it would be helpful in letting people know that they don't have to maybe be as hyper independent as maybe they've had to be in the past, or maybe they feel like they have to be. So having a conversation, starting the conversation is all so important. So we would love for you to
Yes.
be a part of that. If you want to go to the website, the link is already in our Instagram bio. And we appreciate the one person that has already joined. So
Yes.
join the group, it's completely free. And we'll be posting the question there for you guys to go ahead and comment, or you can add a post yourself. It's super easy to join. Um,
It's just nice
and
knowing that there's other people going through the in-between stage, as well, whether it be hyper independency or what we talked about last
yeah,
week with love and crushes. Just, we're all in it in different ways, but in the
yes,
same sense, we're all in it together.
absolutely.
So, just like talking about how you navigate through things, you don't even have to talk about our episode today. You can talk about something else that's been on your mind, but we'd
Right,
love to hear from you.
right. Always and forever. Um, we thank you so much for following the Instagram. If you don't
Yes.
know already, we are at Between the Pod on Instagram. Please give us a like and a follow on our recent posts, and let us know how you're liking the podcast. You can leave a comment under any post. We don't mind.
Direct
We'd
message, reach out to
love,
T, reach out to me.
yeah,
Anyway,
we'd love to get connected with you any way possible. Um, you can always catch the video version on YouTube and the audio version on Spotify, wherever you're listening. And we
yes.
are the In Between podcast for both of those. Um, and I think that's all of our socials.
Great. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in today. We really hope or relate that you relate to what was said today. We definitely look forward to future episodes and hope you follow along the way.
Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. And we will catch you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.